There is a fable from Aesop that, as I begin to tell it, I'm sure you're familiar, but I think it's appropriate for today. The fable is about I would say here, a Greek grandfather with his Greek grandson, and they want to go to town to sell corn. So they say they're going to go together, and the grandfather pulls out his gaidaro, pulls out his donkey. They put corn on the donkey. The grandfather puts his young grandson on the donkey, and they begin their trip to town. Do you know the story? So as they're going, they overhear some people talking. And some people are saying, look at that young boy, no respect for his grandfather. He's sitting on the gaidaro, he's sitting on the donkey, and his poor old grandfather is walking alongside. So the grandson says, you know, I don't feel comfortable, let's change spots. So the young boy comes down off the donkey, and his grandfather gets on the donkey, and then they continue. And as the case in all Greek neighborhoods, other people started to talk, again, because of what they see them and they say, Kitaki, look at this, that grandfather is sitting on the donkey and he's making his young little boy here, his grandson, walk alongside of him. And they hear it. They say, oh, now what are we going to do? They say, well, let's both get on top of the donkey. So now they both get on top of the donkey and they continue as they're going closer to the town, and now they hear other people speaking. They say, look at those people. Don't they care about that donkey? They're not going to fortosi with corn, and now they're walking alongside of them. They hear that, and they go, oh my God, we better just, both of us will walk. So they both get off the donkey, and now they're walking, pulling the donkey with the corn, and they hear, as they get closer and closer, they hear someone else say, look at those foolish people. They have a donkey, and they're pulling it, and they're walking alongside of it. You can't win. Whatever you say, whatever you do, people will find something to talk about. But at the same time, the donkey is very, very important in the Bible. And there are two famous donkeys, two, in the Old Testament as we move towards today. We have today's donkey, but we have one before in the book of Numbers in the Old Testament that actually spoke, that talked. And let me tell you the story if you don't know it, because it is connected to today. There was a sorcerer, he wasn't really a prophet, a sorcerer, who if you gave him enough money would either bless or curse someone. So a group of people were afraid of the Jews. The Jews were finishing the 40 years in the desert, and they were getting closer and closer and closer to the promised land. The walls of Jericho had fallen. And so now people were afraid of them. And so one king went to this sorcerer and he said, I want you to curse the Jews for me. They're going to be passing through this area. Go up on the mountain, and when you see them, curse them. For the right money, I'll do it, he said. His name was Balaam. We see his name in the hymns of the church many times. Balaam. So Balaam says, okay, for that money I'm going to do it. So he gets on his gaidaro, he gets on his donkey, and he starts off to get to the top of the mountain. As he is going, and he's getting in a certain area, the donkey all of a sudden pulls over to the right, and Balaam almost falls off. And he won't go. Balaam gets off and he hits the donkey. Gets back on the donkey, and the donkey starts again. This time they get to a narrow spot as they're going up the mountain. And again, the donkey all of a sudden starts pulling to the left. But he had nowhere to go, and he hurts the foot of Balaam as he crashes into the side of the mountain. Again, Balaam is furious, and he hits the donkey a second time. They continue. As they get closer to the top where he's going to curse the Jews, very narrow spot. The donkey can't go right, it can't go left. And all of a sudden it stops and it kneels. And now Balaam is more furious than ever, and he begins hitting the donkey and hitting the donkey. And finally the donkey turns and says, in Hebrew, he says, "You foolish man, don't you see what's standing in front of you?" He says, "God has sent an angel and a sword 3 times. And if I did not stop, that angel would kill you. God does not want you to curse the Jews. He wants you to bless the Jews." With that, Balaam gets on the donkey and runs back down the mountain. The talking mule that speaks and protects people and tells them what their destiny really is, that their calling is not to bless, not to curse, but to bless, was a blessing for Balaam. And so many of the hymns of the church say, do we hear, do we see, or do we need a guide, or do we need a donkey to tell us what's in front of us? The second donkey that's famous in the Bible is this one today. And if you look at the front cover of your worship guide, you see there Jesus on the donkey, on the colt, walk into Jerusalem, and everybody with palms and branches. You know the story. But sometimes we pass over things too quickly and we don't see what's very, very important. And in this morning's gospel lesson during the Orthros service, we heard that Jesus, as he was ready to go into Jerusalem, he sends 2 of his disciples into the city and he says, "You will go there and you will find a donkey. And this donkey will be tied up, a young donkey. No one has ever ridden this donkey. Untie it and bring it with its mother, the older donkey, to me. And if anybody asks you, what are you doing? You tell them, the Lord has need of it." And that's exactly what happened. They went into town, they found the young donkey, an older donkey, the mother, with him. They untied the donkey, began to bring it back to Jesus, and someone said, "What are you doing?" And they said, "The Lord told us to tell you he needs it. Take it." This is, I think, one of the most spectacular lessons of Holy Week, that God needs us. He wants us to carry him. The donkey in the story is really the hero today, when you look at it. If you look at the icon carefully, his head is down, bowing down. There's a humility to him. And his importance is that he was willing to carry Jesus, to allow Jesus to proclaim who he was. It is the donkey that actually expressed who Jesus was. If he were to use a horse, he would have been a king of power, a king of the military, because kings would come in this way into a city, usually on a horse. Very few would come on a donkey. And if they did, they meant that they were a king of peace, a king of weakness. And so no one wanted to do that. And here comes Jesus on a donkey, never been ridden before, that needed to be untied and brought into the city. The donkey keeps its head down and carries Jesus. That donkey is a Christophoros, a Christopher. The word Christophoros, some of you came and you were receiving communion and your name had Christos in it. Christina. Beautiful name, especially when you connect it to Christophoros, to carry Jesus out into the world, to be an evangelist of Jesus, to be a proclaimer of Jesus. And ultimately, at the end of Pascha, when we receive our phos and we go out after we express the anastasy, that phos means that we are carrying Jesus into the world. We carry his light, we carry his peace, we carry his message of truth, we carry his message of forgiveness. We carry all of these messages out into the church, into the world. Having received him, we carry him like a donkey, our heads down, our importance not in ourselves, but in what we carry, in who we carry, and the truth that we carry. Saint Irenaeus, 2nd century, wrote about this. I love reading and rereading what he wrote. This week I spent some time reading. And he says something beautiful here. On top of saying that we should be Christofori, my sermon, by the way, is not mine, it's his, Saint Irenaeus. Our job as priests is to go back and take the paradoxes, the tradition of the past, and just give it to you. I have nothing to give you, but that which has been given to me. And he says that the reason why Jesus wanted a young donkey that was still tied, because they're malleable. He says an older donkey, as you know, many of you who are in Greece, if you go to get on a donkey, an older one, and it goes for a walk, it'll go where it knows. It's been there before, no problem. It likes its chosen path. But if you wanted to do something different, something that it's not familiar with, an older donkey doesn't want to do it, stops. But a younger donkey that's still tied, still with its mother, is malleable. It can be changed. It can be led into the right direction. And that's what Jesus wants. He wants our hearts to be open. We don't even know where he wants us to go. All we need to do is to know and to hear and to see the angel in front of us that says, no cursing, I want you to bless. And what I want you to do is to go here or there, or I need this, or I need that. And we say, why? Because he is the Lord. I can't tell you how many times the Lord has talked to people and they come to me and they say, you know, God has spoken to me and that's why I want to do this or I want to do that. There have been times that God has spoken to me and said, go to this person and tell them, I want you to open your house to this person or to that person. I want you to use your car and to take that person to the hospital or take that person. God has need of what we have. But are we willing to untie it? Again, the church fathers say, isn't it interesting that we connect today with Lazarus and the donkey? The donkey needed to be untied, and Lazarus needed to be untied. When he comes out, you see in the icon, when he comes out of the tomb, he's all tied up. And Jesus turns to the people there and he says, unbind him, untie him. Why? Because God has need of him. And for 30 years, Lazarus became bishop, archbishop of Cyprus. For 30 years after his first anastasis. And died in Cyprus, and then his body, as I shared with you yesterday, to Constantinople, where it is now. This is what Palm Sunday is about. It's not about palms. It's not about luncheons and red eggs. It's about the Lord who comes to us into our homes, not to Jerusalem, into our house, into this house. We hold palms, we're going to bless them in a few minutes, and we're going to hold them, and we're going to take them home. Do we realize what we are doing? We are actually saying, Lord, if you need something from me, take it. It's yours. Lead me. But are we like Balaam, blind to what God wants of us? Or do we listen to him and go in the right direction? Let me end with sharing this short story with you. It's a story of an older man wrote this story in his diary. He looks back into his life and he says, I have one major regret. When I was a young boy, I grew up in a mid-American town. No special town. We had the railroad went through it. And I remember as a little boy, everybody got excited because for the first time and the last time ever, the President of the United States was coming through our town because the train was passing through. And so they knew that the President was coming, and so they painted the railroad station. They fixed the town. The band was there. The veterans were there. the musical choirs were there, the politicians were there, everyone was there waiting for the train to come through their town and stop just for a few minutes. It would stop, the president would wave, they would see him, and then they would continue on their way. But he says, also, the popcorn wagon was there. And as a young boy, he says, he writes in his diary, oh, how I loved popcorn. I remember, he says, the line to the popcorn wagon. It was a long one. My parents gave me money and I was standing in the line, and I could tell I was getting closer and closer and closer to the popcorn. I was getting so close I could smell it. Finally, he said, I was there. I gave the popcorn man my money. He gave me the bag. He writes with great description. It was a warm bag. I could feel the warmth of the popcorn. I could smell it. I put the popcorn in my mouth and I turned and I realized everyone was walking towards me. What happened? They said, well, the president came and he left. He says, I missed the president of the United States because of popcorn as a little boy. We are not careful, my friends. The same thing can happen in our life. We can be distracted by the popcorn wagons of this world. Prestige, money, power, egoismo, whatever it is, whatever ties us to this world, if we don't cut the string and follow the Lord, He can come and go by and we miss the whole thing. So do not allow Pascha this year. Don't allow yourselves to be drawn away from the Lord because of, as nice as it is, margherita, or eggs, or the sweet bread. All those things are important, but only in the right place. After we have bowed our knees and received Christ within us, that we can then say, Christos anesti, and we have become Christophori on behalf of His need. Please rise.